Most people celebrate hitting $100,000 like it's the finish line. It's not even close. There's a second number, one almost nobody talks about. That's where the real game begins. And once you understand what happens at that number, you'll never think about wealth the same way again. That number is $500,000. Here's what most people assume. Wealth grows in a straight line. $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Same effort, same speed, same grind all the way up. That's not how it works. Wealth grows exponentially, and $500,000 is exactly where that curve starts to bend. Here's the proof in plain numbers. At $100,000, a solid 8% return gives you $8,000 a year. That's real money, but it doesn't feel like momentum. You're still doing all the heavy lifting. Every dollar of progress still comes from you. At $500,000, that same 8% return is $40,000 a year. That's not a rounding error. That's a full income stream. That's the moment your money starts working almost as hard as you do. And that's the first massive shift. Your returns start to matter more than your contributions. So how long does it actually take to get here? For most Australians, the first $100,000 can swallow your entire 20s, sometimes longer. But going from $100,000 to $500,000, that often happens in 10 to 15 years. Not because people get smarter, but because three forces start working together at once. Your income is higher, your super is compounding, and your investments are larger, especially if you own property, where rising values start pushing your net worth up faster than your savings ever could. This is why so many Australians hit $500,000 in their early to mid-40s, and why it feels sudden. Because in many ways, it is. But here's what nobody tells you. $500,000 doesn't just change your numbers, it changes how you think. Before this point, almost everyone is playing defense, week to week, paycheck to paycheck. The question is always, can I afford this? After $500,000, the question becomes, what does this decision do to my long-term wealth? That's not a small shift. That's a completely different game. You stop surviving and start building. You start thinking in years, in strategies, in asset allocation. You're playing offense, maybe for the first time in your financial life. And that mindset shift? Worth more than the money itself. Now let's talk about what $500,000 actually looks like in Australia, because it's rarely one clean pile of cash. It might be $300,000 in property equity, $150,000 in super, and $50,000 in investments. Or $200,000 in shares, $200,000 in property, and $100,000 spread across cash and super. The structure matters less than the total, because at $500,000, what you almost always have is multiple assets working together, not just one. And that diversification reduces risk and opens doors. You can leverage, you can reposition, you have options. And options, real options, are what wealth actually buys you. Here's where it starts to feel tangible. A $500,000 portfolio can generate $20,000 to $40,000 a year through dividends, rental income, or market growth, depending on how it's structured. That might not replace your salary yet, but it changes your relationship with work entirely. You're no longer one bad month away from crisis. You've got a second engine running. And that psychological shift is enormous, because now you're working because you choose to, not because you have to. That changes how you negotiate, what risks you'll take, how you show up. But I want to be straight with you, because $500,000 is also where a lot of people quietly stall. This is the danger zone. It's the point where people get comfortable. The lifestyle upgrades start. Bigger house, better car, more expensive holidays. And suddenly, the gap between what comes in and what goes out disappears. That gap is everything, because that gap is what feeds your investments. It's what carries you to the next level. The moment lifestyle consumes it, the momentum stops. $500,000 becomes a ceiling instead of a launchpad. Here's what happens if you don't let that happen. If you stay disciplined, keep investing, keep the gap, that $500,000 can become $1 million in 7 to 10 years. Not by working harder, just by letting compounding do what it does. And at $1 million, your portfolio is generating $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Now you're not just building wealth, you're approaching financial independence. That's why $500,000 matters so much. Not for what it is, but for what it leads to. It's the midpoint where the pace accelerates, the thinking shifts, and the options multiply. But only if you treat it as a milestone, not a destination. Because the people who see $500,000 as momentum reach $1 million. The people who see it as success stay there. And the only difference between those two outcomes is what you decide to do next. If this changed how you think about wealth building, subscribe and turn on notifications. New videos every week. See you in the next one.